She stood before cameras promoting a children's book about grief and healing after loss. But prosecutors say Kouri Richins knew exactly why her children no longer had a father, because she allegedly poisoned him herself with a lethal dose of fentanyl, then collected millions while playing the grieving widow. Welcome to Court Decoded. Today we cover the shocking case of Kouri Richins, a Utah mother, real estate agent, and author who was just found guilty of murdering her husband Eric in one of the most calculated crimes in recent memory. March 4th, 2022. Kamas, Utah. Eric Richins, a 40-year-old father of three, had just closed a lucrative land deal worth over $2 million. That evening, his wife Kouri prepared a celebratory Moscow Mule cocktail to toast his success. According to prosecutors, that drink contained something far more sinister than vodka and ginger beer, a lethal 5 times the fatal dose of fentanyl. By morning, Eric Richins was dead. Kouri called 911, claiming she discovered her husband unresponsive in bed. First responders attempted resuscitation but could not revive him. Initial assumptions pointed toward a tragic overdose, perhaps accidental. Eric had no known history of drug use. His family immediately questioned the circumstances. The autopsy would soon reveal the truth. Eric Richins had enough fentanyl in his system to kill 5 grown men. This was no accident. Suspicion fell on Kouri Richins almost immediately. Eric's family had warned him repeatedly that they feared for his safety. His own father later testified that Eric had confided his concerns about Kouri's behavior in the months before his death. Investigators began examining the couple's finances and discovered a troubling pattern. Kouri had secretly taken out multiple life insurance policies on Eric worth nearly $2 million without his knowledge. Some policies were obtained just months before his death. She had also forged his signature on critical documents. The financial motive was overwhelming, but the prosecution needed to prove how Kouri obtained the fentanyl that killed her husband. What they uncovered would paint a picture of calculated premeditation spanning months, possibly years, revealing that Eric Richins may have survived multiple previous poisoning attempts. The prosecution traced Kouri's fentanyl supply through a network of witnesses and digital evidence. According to testimony, Kouri had contacted multiple acquaintances seeking to purchase the deadly synthetic opioid. Text messages recovered from her phone revealed damning conversations. One associate testified that Kouri had asked to purchase fentanyl on multiple occasions, once claiming she needed it to euthanize a pet. That explanation quickly fell apart under scrutiny. Investigators also discovered that Eric had suffered mysterious illnesses in the year before his death, episodes of sudden sickness that required medical attention but defied diagnosis. Prosecutors argued these were earlier poisoning attempts by Kouri, trial runs before the fatal dose. The timeline showed a woman allegedly experimenting with how much poison she could administer without raising immediate alarm, learning from each failed attempt. The financial evidence against Kouri Richins painted a portrait of greed and desperation. Despite the couple's apparent wealth through their real estate dealings, prosecutors revealed that Kouri had been secretly draining their accounts. She had allegedly forged Eric's signature to redirect funds and had taken out those massive life insurance policies, listing herself as sole beneficiary. Eric, according to testimony, had become suspicious. He had recently changed his will, attempting to protect assets for their children and limit what Kouri could access upon his death. The timing proved critical. Eric closed his multi-million-dollar land deal on March 3rd. By March 5th, he was dead. Prosecutors argued Kouri acted when she did precisely because Eric was becoming aware of her financial manipulation and was taking steps to protect himself. Steps that would have exposed her schemes and cut off her access to his wealth. In 2023, while under investigation for murder, Kouri Richins published a children's book. Titled, Are You With Me? The picture book aimed to help children process grief after losing a parent. Kouri appeared on local television promoting the book, speaking softly about helping her sons cope with their father's death. The audacity stunned investigators, Eric's family, and eventually the nation. Here was a woman facing murder charges, profiting from a book about the very death she allegedly caused. The book's publication became a focal point at trial, with prosecutors presenting it as evidence of Kouri's calculated manipulation. She had allegedly killed her husband, collected insurance money, and then monetized the tragedy through publishing, all while maintaining the facade of a grieving mother. For many following the case, the book represented the ultimate act of psychological manipulation. The trial of Kouri Richins captivated Summit County and drew national attention. Prosecutors methodically presented their case: the fentanyl procurement, the life insurance policies, the forged documents, the previous suspected poisoning attempts, and the damning text messages. Witness after witness painted a picture of a woman who had allegedly planned her husband's murder for months. Eric's family testified emotionally about his fears in the final months of his life. The defense attempted to raise reasonable doubt, questioning the reliability of certain witnesses and challenging whether prosecutors had definitively proven Kouri administered the fentanyl herself. They suggested Eric might have unknowingly ingested the drug through other means, but the weight of evidence proved overwhelming. The prosecution had constructed a circumstantial case so thorough, so detailed, that each piece of evidence reinforced the next. The jury listened for weeks as the full scope of the alleged conspiracy became clear. Perhaps the most damaging evidence came from Kouri's own devices. Despite her attempts to delete incriminating messages, digital forensics recovered communications showing her efforts to obtain fentanyl. Investigators found searches on her devices related to lethal drug doses and undetectable poisons. The digital breadcrumb trail proved impossible to fully erase. One recovered text showed Kouri allegedly asking an acquaintance if they could obtain more fentanyl for her just weeks before Eric's death. Another showed her discussing whether the drug would be detectable in an autopsy. These messages, prosecutors argued, demonstrated premeditation and a sophisticated understanding that what she planned was murder. The defense could not adequately explain why an innocent woman would be researching lethal doses and autopsy detection while secretly obtaining one of the deadliest drugs in existence. After weeks of testimony and days of deliberation, the Summit County jury reached its verdict: guilty. Kouri Richins was found guilty of aggravated murder in the death of her husband Eric. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read. Eric's family wept, years of suspicion and grief finally validated by 12 jurors who saw through the facade of the grieving widow. Kouri showed little visible reaction, the same composure she had maintained throughout. The conviction carries severe consequences in Utah. Aggravated murder is a capital offense, though prosecutors had not sought the death penalty. Kouri Richins faces the possibility of life in prison without parole. For Eric's 3 sons, the verdict brings a measure of justice, but cannot restore what they lost: a father allegedly taken by the person who should have protected him most. The conviction of Kouri Richins stands as a stark reminder that modern forensics can pierce even the most carefully constructed deceptions. Her alleged scheme spanned months of planning, involved forged documents and secret insurance policies, and concluded with a fatal dose of fentanyl hidden in a celebratory drink. Yet investigators unraveled every thread. The legal lesson here is profound. Digital evidence never truly disappears, and a motive as clear as millions in life insurance will always draw scrutiny. Kouri Richins wrote a book about helping children grieve, but the jury concluded she was the architect of that grief. Justice in this case followed a winding path, but arrived nonetheless. Eric Richins did not survive to see it, but his family finally has answers. If you found this case as shocking as we did, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. Court Decoded brings you the most compelling legal cases every week. Your support helps us continue telling these important stories.